Hey everyone, and welcome back. Back at the Speech Lab today for week 3, which we're about to start. If you're watching this, we probably have started it. You're going to be finding a topic for the class that you're going to settle on, and you're going to be looking at and finding sources that you will use. One for the assignment where you need to turn in 3 sources. We'll talk more about that in the next video. But also, you can use these if you plan it out well in your speeches, really all of them, not just the informative or the persuasives. But while in the chapter of notes in your course pack, everything's together with topics and sources, I'm going to make 2 different videos. I've got a few minutes here while I'm at the lab, so I wanted to use the whiteboard to talk a little bit about finding a topic and how to maybe deal with a situation if you're stuck between a couple of different topics. So let me blow this up. Here is the handout, and you'll see that topics for your speech should be national issues that are. So we can talk about this. They're appropriate. So there's not many topics that are national issues that are off limits. I can't, matter of fact, think of a hard example right now. Because if it is something that is a national issue, we should be able to talk about it. But don't embarrass yourself. Case in point, this is a true story, I swear. Once I had a student in class who wanted to give a speech on what he considered a national topic, which was being addicted to masturbation. That's what he wanted to do. Why? Well, because he told us, after I foolishly said go for it, that he himself was addicted. Boy, it made class awkward for everyone. So, and he was dead serious. It wasn't even a joke. So, I mean, while I know that is an issue and that happens and people do suffer from all kinds of addictions, don't pick one that's going to embarrass yourself or others, cause anybody to be too uncomfortable. Now, second thing is that it should be controversial. That just means that it, again, has at least two competing sides. So it doesn't have to be something that is wildly controversial in the traditional sense, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, or life or death penalty, abortion or not, those sorts of things. While you can use those, you just need to remember that you need 2 opposing viewpoints, at least. There's usually 3 or 4, 12, 15 opposing viewpoints in reality, but make sure that you have at least 2 and it's clear that there's a conflict. Third, your topic needs to be timely. So it needs to be something that is currently an issue that we're looking at. You can do political topics that will be settled, hopefully, in the November election, right? Hopefully we won't have to push into January before we find out who won these elections. But you can still use that throughout the semester, even though we will go past the election date. Other things, though, that have already been settled, you don't want to do. For example, you don't want to give us a speech on legalizing recreational marijuana in Michigan because it's been done, right? It was a hot topic in speech class for a few years. It's kind of off the table now. Next, and related, be relevant. Here, it's not so much about time of the larger timeline of life, but make sure that you're being relevant to this audience. Again, if there's a topic like how to survive high school or what we should change in high school curriculums, yeah, that is a national issue that we could address, but it's not very relevant to this audience. I mean, they're not in high school. They finished high school, and you can make the argument, yeah, but what if they have kids one day? Well, 2 things. 1, what if they don't? And 2, even if they do, they might have 15 to 25 years before they have to worry about high school. So keep those things in mind. And last, do be passionate about whatever it is that you decide to speak on. This doesn't mean that you have to come in and be on fire about everything, but make sure that you have some passion in your voice. It'll make your life easier and it'll make your speech better if you care strongly for the topic that you're discussing. Now, the second part of this, and this is what I wanted to use the board for, I want you to think about how you may choose a topic. Some of you don't need this. Some of you will say, I've already got my topic. I know what it is. It meets the criteria you just described, and I'm going to go with it. Great. However, if you're still stuck between a few different topics, think about how you might sort through those in a useful way. So, first of all, if you're a linear thinker, you could make a list of possible topics, right? So just on a sheet of paper or whatever you use, write down all possible topics. Then go back and look at the criteria we just discussed to make sure that it fits, those topics fit what we're looking for. And then you can sort of continue to branch out and see how each of those topics might relate to each other, what you might discuss specifically about those topics, etc. The other thing, really the other approach that you can do with brainstorming is to use concept mapping. And that's where the board is going to come in handy. So with concept mapping, you're basically taking a larger idea, and I know it's kind of hard to see this. Let me see if I can get a different color marker here. Hopefully that's a little clear. Yeah. So you could take an idea. Let's just go with one that we don't want to use because it's not very current, Macs versus PCs. So nobody do this topic. But if that were the topic, you could write everything you know or consider when discussing Macs versus PCs. So price, performance, popularity. Everything just happens to start with a P so far. You could do background, like the founders, Bill Gates versus Steve Jobs kind of thing. You could look at, what is there? Performance is already up there. We could look at memory. We could look at education versus business. I mean, there's no real stopping point here unless you give yourself a time limit, which I recommend. But once you do that, you'll see that there are some connections here. So if you look at memory and performance, so the memory of the machine connects directly with its performance. You might look up and see background and say, well, that's interesting, but that really doesn't apply to what I want to look at. Popularity seems interesting, and you might decide to include it because one is more popular than another, so you should go with the one that is more popular only because you're more likely to encounter it in the workplace. What you don't want to do is make the argument that because it's more popular, then that's the one to go with because it's just simply popular. That's not how that argument should work, and we'll talk about that with fallacies. So popularity, maybe, okay. Price is probably a very big issue for most people. I'd say the performance is as well. And then that leaves us with education versus business. And popularity. So if it were me, I would talk about popularity first and simply which one you're more likely to encounter. Then I would talk about performance second, and which one does different things in different ways. You know, I know some machines do certain tasks better than the other, and vice versa. And last, I would talk about price because that could be the determining factor for a lot of folks on which sort of system they buy. So when you simply do a concept mapping exercise like that, what you're able to do is see a bigger picture than what we usually can visualize mentally. So keep that sort of thing in mind and really make sure that your topic fits with our criteria and, go with it. What you might find is that from doing something like this, you come up with a completely different topic. So what if I looked at this and I saw price? Okay, great. Then I started to think, what about price in computers? Well, what's on my mind right now? COVID, because it's on all of our minds. With COVID, we're finding that a lot of schools are going virtual. We're also seeing that some students are being pushed out because they can't afford laptops. That deals with price. Here's a new idea. Let's give a speech on why the government or private businesses or a partnership between the two should provide free laptops to students in order to invest in the future of the country. I mean, again, that's something that could come out of a simple exercise like this one that could take you to a whole nother area of your topics that you wouldn't have otherwise considered. All right. So again, to recap very quickly, when you think about your topic, check the list, make sure it fits, and then do some concept mapping just to give yourself, a fuller view of what's out there for you. This takes less than 5 minutes, or it can anyway. You can do it for an hour if you want. But really give this some thought so that you're not miserable all semester when you just chose a convenient but maybe not catchy for you topic. All right, more coming soon with the video on sources. Have a great one.